Marketing is like how actually money's made by any organization. If you're not selling, if you're not monetizing what you're producing, be it a product or a service, it's actually quite worthless.
Sometimes when you're thinking about marketing strategy, it's as much about the people and the roles and the shoes as it is generally about the strategic intent.
Jay Safdar is the Interim Head of Marketing at AllSaints. You'll hear how his journey has been driven by curiosity, courage, and a deep understanding of how marketing actually creates commercial impact.
Life insurance is hard work to sell. You can sell something like that, you can sell anything.
Would you recommend your younger self going into the industry?
I'd say yes, but I think you have to be ready to have tougher skin. It is tough if you don't have thick skin, don't do it.
Choosing fixed-term roles, learning at pace, and arriving in new organizations ready to diagnose, prioritize, and then deliver.
It's a tough gig to get a job in marketing today.
You have to network. You have to be visible. You have to connect with people.
What fascinates you? What's the best thing about marketing?
It's a conversation packed with insight, resilience, and real-world experience. Let's get right into it.
Jay, amazing to have you on. Really great that you're here. Look, you've operated across a number of industries, had a stellar career to this point. What fascinates you? What's the best thing about marketing?
I think it's that intersection between consumers and businesses, and actually that was the reason I kind of first got into it. I studied product design in high school, actually. That's as far back as it goes. I was a bit of a nerd, and my GCSE product design work counted for A-levels. It was like of that caliber. And I remember there was this image on the wall of a design cycle, and it started with like research and then ideation, prototyping, development, testing, and then marketing, and then evaluation. And then the cycle starts again. And I was kind of like, if that marketing piece doesn't go well, you can have the best product in the world and it doesn't sell. Because I was at that like T junction, like, do I become a product designer or do I go into marketing? I remember thinking, there's so many products that get designed that are really well, really cool, really interesting, but they don't sell. They're not commercialized. So I think for me, it was like, marketing is like how actually money's made by any organization. Like you can, if you're not selling, if you're not monetizing what you're producing, be it a product or a service, it's actually quite worthless. So yeah,
hey,
that
there you
was
go.
it for me.
I tell you, it reminds me of a talk that I watched with Seth Godin, and he said, you know, the saying, the best thing since sliced bread, right? And in fact, sliced bread back in the day, perhaps best product in the world and the simplest product in the world, and yet it wasn't selling at all.
Yeah.
And it was only when Wonder, the bread company, took over and infused it with marketing, did it become what it is today. So I love that. I love that thought. Product versus comms, I guess.
Yeah, because even I think you see a lot of products and brands where they've just put lipstick on a pig, but it's selling. It works to an extent. That's how you make that difference. Yeah.
Very true.
Give us an example of a lipstick on a pig.
Which one is it?
I think in commoditized categories, you're seeking to make differentiation, particularly in financial services, telco. Actually, a lot of my experience, actually, I think it's a good place to learn the craft, because if you can sell something that's quite like life insurance is hard work to sell. We were talking about it before, and if you can sell something like that, you can sell anything.
So hold on. So is it differentiation or is it distinctiveness in your mind, which is the key to good marketing?
That's the exam question. I think I'll be quite safe and say you do need both. I think increasingly it's distinctiveness, because that's what you need visual standout for as well in a cluttered media world. So yeah, and short attentions.
I'm just going to do the 1-2 on the financial services thing. We were obviously all ex-HSBC of a fashion, but it is a tough gig, because you're often not, you know, certainly don't hold all the P's. I mean, it's a good thing in insurance that marketing doesn't hold the pricing levers, you know, as non-trained actuaries and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a great stomping ground to learn the craft. What fascinates me about your career is you've kind of actively chosen fixed-term contracts, which is, I mean, it means you back yourself. It means you get great variety. There's lots of pros. Or is it as active that? What's your thinking process around crafting a slightly different career path?
Yeah, I mean, my parents think I'm absolutely crazy. The first time I did it, they were like, why would you leave a permanent role for a fixed term contract? They just didn't understand. And thank God for women, actually, maternity covers as opportunities, because it creates that movement within the market. which may not otherwise be as accessible to create opportunity.
Sorry, that is such a great insight.
Yeah.
Isn't it just? I was just
You're
thinking
the
that
first
myself.
I'm
said-
like, please have more pregnancies.
but yeah, of course, you know, I mean,
And I think I'm able to learn so much from a fixed term contract because it's a finite period. You have to deliver within that 9 to 12 months. Otherwise, you're not going to get that next role. You don't, if you don't have a proof point of what you did in a year, it's game over potentially. And I think earlier on in my career, some of those moves were to learn something new. It felt like I had a skills gap. I wanted to be broader, or felt like there was something that was missing in my experience to date. And then I think there's other moments in your career where you want to move away from something that's not quite worked out. Either the cultural alignment or the skills they need isn't what you've got. So I think early on in my career, it was very much intentional, and it was like I was almost like rotating around a few things to get a different skills gap. As an example, first on, I was all in credit cards. My first 3 roles were in credit cards. I used to keep getting recruiters saying, "Oh, come to Vanquist, come to Capital One, come to New Day." I was like, I don't know. Do I love credit cards that much to work in credit cards for my entire
always
life?
dreamed of as a boy, growing up and working in credit cards.
Hey man, says the man who spent 12 years in insurance or something.
Yeah,
There you go. Love
Debit
it.
cards, reward cards, all the cards. And that was when I moved to EE, and that was a fixed term contract. It was to change industry, but it was also some skills channel wise I didn't feel like I had. I was in a role where I was doing above the line and affiliates, and obviously paid search and paid social were huge. They're like the biggest slices of digital media spend. And I was like, whilst I can learn a bit from agencies or from my peers, until I'm actually responsible for it myself, I don't think I'd feel as confident being able to like know the ins and outs. And whilst I'm still a manager, I feel like I wanted that technical experience in it. Having not been agency side and only have been client side, I just felt I needed that little bit more detail of how those channels worked. Perhaps one reflection I've always had is like, it would have been nice to have had some agency experience, but then once I'd done enough brand roles, I was like, I think I'm happy in this lane for now.
You know, it's funny. I was chatting to someone from Unilever yesterday, and he said that it's sort of almost coming to a point where it's the end of the generalist career. Because of course, in fact, he was talking about how as part of their restructure, many organizations are doing this, the role of general manager is becoming one that is less and less seen in the structures. And therefore, it plays to your point, right? Where if you're able to get more specialist technical capability, then actually you're broadening your skill set, you've got longevity, you've got something truly valuable to offer.
Yeah. I feel like the common thread between all my roles would be channels and media. So I feel like I have quite a wide experience. Some roles it was affiliates and ATL, some it was bottom of funnel. So I feel quite confident I'm quite media neutral, whereas sometimes people come in with a TV heavy experience, so they will always suggest we do TV because it's what they're comfortable in. Or someone's done a lot of programmatic before, so they'll think, oh, we have to have programmatic on the media plan. Whereas I feel like I can be quite objective about it based on the objectives.
Jay, you talked about coming in and having to prove yourself in a relatively short space of time. 9 to 12 months and you're out if it doesn't go to plan. So therefore, when you walk into a new place, do you have a little bit of a playbook that you're working towards, whether conscious or unconscious? But do you have sort of a few levers that you kind of go in your diagnosis phase of that assignment, kind of going, let me look out for certain things, and how do I sort of develop to kind of hit the road running?
Yeah, I've probably not thought about it, but I think there probably are some commonalities where I want to do like a quick audit of like what's working, what's not working, looking at recent reviews of kind of campaign performance. I think you have to do that quite quickly and then find like what's quick wins, and doing a bit of a competitor analysis as well. Like what are other brands in the industry doing that we're not doing? And identifying those opportunities and then prioritizing them, like which ones are going to be like ones we can do in the next month, 6 months. If it's going to take over a year, not so interested. Realistically, if I'm going to hand it over to someone and they're not going to care, there's not much point for me starting that work. There's been some great ideas with agencies, but I'm like, that is going to take me 6 months now. And I don't, the person I'm covering for Matt Cover may be really interested in it, but I'm not going to call her up now and be like, hey, do you think I should start this project that you'd like to like continue once I leave?
Yeah, but another wonderful insight and reflection on actually sometimes when you're thinking about marketing strategy, it's as much about the people and the roles and the shoes as it is generally about the strategic intent.
Massively. I mean, I'm taking away two key things. One is you're absolutely owning your trajectory, your career, to the point that I'm going to focus on things that are deliverable in the time frame I'm going to be around.
Yeah.
But also what I heard in terms of the sort of the media neutrality or multi-specialist is there's that idea of the T.
Yeah.
And then there's the thought, okay, maybe it's an M, like I've got 2 or 3, or the thought of it as being a comb,
Yeah.
multi-specialist sort of thing. So not generalist, but more multi-specialist. But I'm going to take a step back for that. And so some people, will be very aware of you and what you've done. We're a pretty big audience, so a lot won't. So tell us about some of the things you're really proud of, what you've achieved already in your career.
Ooh. I think most roles I've been in, I've been able to transform it in some ways, and leveling up digital maturity or the media channel mix. Even yesterday, like we were talking about, like, oh, do I have an idea of where I'm going next? And I was like, I'm not too sure. And she was saying, have I been speaking to the person I'm covering on Map Cover? And I was like, no, I haven't, but she'll be able to pick it up. She did the role before. And my colleague was like, are you joking? You've done loads of new things and you've introduced a lot of stuff. I was like, oh, maybe you sometimes forget to look back, and actually we've really diversified our channel mix. So when I came into AllSaints, the digital strategy was very lower funnel, PPC and paid social. And actually we were seeing those diminishing returns, and actually having some experience in knowing what brand equity means in brands where we've done econometrics, I could actually understand, like, this is the reason why performance is going down. We need to be more mid-funnel. We need to be priming for future growth. So actually now, as we run into Black Friday, which is peak trading, it's not so much actually what media marketing activity we're doing in Black Friday week. It's all about the run up, like 2 months out, 3 months out. So trying to be a bit more strategic and long term. Yeah. Even a brand like Hyperoptic, which was a telco challenger, they were also very lower funnel focused, doing lots of direct mail and actually testing the impact of frequency, like what's finding the right sweet spot, where's it actually driving incremental revenue versus driving a call that you would have probably got from the 2 DMs instead of having to send out 6, and then reinvesting that into activity that drives more incremental, so more mid-funnel, upper funnel. I'm a big fan of video, and I think like digital video can be used in so many different ways, whether it's social, connected TV, and storytelling. So I think I really don't like that separation of bottom of funnel and upper funnel. I think it's all performance marketing really, because if it's not driving some kind of commercial outcome or customer impact, what's the point of it? I think now we're also seeing more dovetailing of media with creative. Like I've seen people talking about creative is actually the next performance channel that you should have in your team, having creative strategists in your team. And I think it's kind of circling back, like media and creative used to be quite together, joint responses, been separated. And I think now we're seeing, to drive performance, you need good creative.
Today's program is brought to you by 2 fantastic organizations. First up is Studio Space, a leading on-demand marketing agency platform. Studio Space gives marketers complete control over their projects, from matching the right agency to your brief, to managing contracts and invoicing, and even tracking all of your spend data all in the one place. They take care of everything, and it's totally hassle-free. They even guarantee the work. So check out Studio Space today. Our second sponsor is the Marketing Skills Trust, a charity with a mission to make marketing a better place for everyone. They provide grants to help create a more equitable industry and support initiatives that really do drive diversity, inclusion, and create opportunity. The trust has been instrumental in leveling up the marketing skills across the board. And do take a look at their website for more information. Now, let's get on with the show.
I love the thought about that performance element, because I mean, AllSaints actually is very multifaceted, right? Physical retail, e-commerce as well, and then I think it was wholesale as well as part of the repertoire, as it were. And in that sort of way of thought and thinking about it, if I think about e-commerce for a moment, it's dramatically shifting when we think about performance, whether that be things like generative, search optimization, or indeed, traffic going to your website, which is no longer just human, as an example. I mean, how are you thinking about the future of how those performance elements sort of evolve, particularly in the digital space?
Yeah, I think you have to try and not get too caught up in the technicalities of it. And actually, are you making interesting content that consumers will find useful?
Or bots find it useful?
I think it has to be for the people.
Okay.
I think you find it's like when people put copy in white font on websites to try and improve their SEO rankings. I think it might work for a little bit, some of those tactics, but medium to longer term, they'll probably the bots will the real tech will realize that you're trying to do a shortcut and figure it out. And I think people appreciate relationships with brand and is that a consistent tone, or are you being too maverick and changing who you are and what you stand for? So I think a brand like AllSaints, it's only 30 years old, but like people who know it love it. Like there is so much brand love, and funnily enough, we don't have a brand management team, but it's just everyone in the company knows what the business stands for. It's a business of feelings. We want people to feel good when wearing it, want them to feel confident and embrace their individuality. That's why we're not trend following, but we lead trends. We're happy to design something that we think works for AllSaints as opposed to jumping on a trend. Whereas other brands will be very much watching and seeing what's happening and responding to make sure they fill that space in the market. I mean, there's an element of that. If there's so much demand for something and we don't have any of it, we want to have some of it, but we're very quite confident in that our style, our attitude, our product quality, and customer service makes AllSaints unique.
It's just to go a bit deeper on that. In reading up what we stand for, when I read that as your values, the customer is the boss. That was the number one principle of Mars. One team, we do what we will say. We do what we say we will. We are responsible. What I'm hearing is that often these things are platitudes. It's more genuinely lived in AllSaints.
Yeah, definitely say so. I think, and it's not like it needs to be written on the walls. People know it and act it. Whereas I think I've worked at brands where it's like a forced conversation, like, how are you being responsible today? it's like second nature. Like we are investing in transparency, and that's hugely important to the senior leadership. And I think when things matter to the senior leadership, it flows quite naturally down, rather than it feeling like a dictatorship of like this new thing is important. And I think customer experience, we did some brand health insight recently, and actually one of the interesting things customers were saying was like the staff are actually really friendly, whereas if you think like a brand that's cool and has attitude, that the staff will be quite dismissive or like, a bit snooty and hands off. But it's the total opposite. It's almost like that John Lewis experience of like quite conversational, quite natural, inspiring, but not like a hard sell. And then we try and make sure that's emulated on digital as well in our customer experience teams that support online. Really, really high NPS scores, which is hard in a category like fashion and retail. When sizing is huge reason for people to return. How do you then manage that in a good way? Delivery, where some of your partners are not necessarily fully your own brand. How do you manage that? Whereas brands like American Express, it's a credit card, and actually you can manage a lot more of it in-house. They have fantastic NPS. But yeah, to be able to do that in e-commerce and a retail environment.
Has to run deep.
Has to run deep.
I just, before it's lost, I want to reverse up to the point about the funnel, in a fully integrated funnel. We had Grace Kite on last week, and she said, if you could assign one thing to the bin, it would be last click attribution. We had a good conversation there. My sort of observation is that the funnel kind of disappeared from view for a few years, from marketing as a profession. She's like, where did that go? And now is having a renaissance. Is that your observation? And if so, why do you think that might be?
Yeah, I think it's about having those two levers, just because everything has become so digital. Everyone's automatically started recognizing media on last click. And then you're wondering, where's the demand? And I don't think I've ever been a role where senior leadership have not just asked, can we not do more PPC brand? And PPC brand is not scalable on its own. You have to invest in other channels to get your brand name out there for people to think. So actually I find demand capture and demand generation more useful as opposed to funnels. Often brand teams end up thinking they're in charge of creative, and media teams end up thinking they're in charge of just conversion and purchase. But actually I think it's not really like that. Media people can understand creative, and creative people should know what their objective and outcomes they're driving. So yeah, demand capture and demand generation, I think, are much more useful org design or like ways to think about structure and responsibilities.
I really like that. I think it's a really lovely reframing as to how it works. In fact,
And priming for future as well. I quite like that one as a way of talking about awareness, because I think finance teams often are like, oh, awareness is not going to drive any revenue in this year. Cut it. It's like,
you're right. And I think what you're suggesting there is reframing everything to achieve a commercial outcome in the near or long term.
yeah, because at the end of the day, we're all working for some kind of commercial outcome.
Yeah.
There's either investors or shareholders. The CEO is answering to someone.
Well, exactly.
We're not working.
Hey,
for
we all have our bosses. That's for sure. I'm fascinated by the thought when you said AllSaints doesn't have a brand management team, but yet has such a fan following and such a level of uniqueness. It actually reminded me of the age-old, and I know time's gone by, the Burberry case study, where they talk a lot about their Britishness. They talk a lot about integration of music into their and storytelling into their vibe. And in fact, I remember when it was the days of Angela Arendes, if I've got that surname pronounced right, when she basically was saying that actually it's not about having a physical experience in a digital world. It's about now having a digital experience in a physical world, and the way that she transformed the thought process on its head. But if I think about Burberry in that sense, it felt like certainly back in that time, there was a real sense of uniqueness and distinctiveness. And I wondered if you could point to what you would say is AllSaints' magic dust when it comes to that uniqueness in the brand.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, because I've always worked in organizations where you kind of feel like brand is like 50-60% and product or acquisition is the other half of focus. But here, the product really is king when it's fashion, because if it's not designed well, if people don't like the physical thing, they're just not going to buy it. So actually product design and having that eye for something interesting, something a bit different, having the confidence to spend and invest a lot in stock of something that may or may not sell, because you are gazing into the future of what's gonna sell in a year or 6 months time. So I think it requires a lot of confidence to be different. And actually, that's something that resonates with me. I've never had an iPhone. I've refused to conform to all Apple devices. Because I've just felt, well, why not go in a different lane? Why follow what the norm is? And I feel like AllSaints really does that. And that's often the common thread when you hear from customers is something a bit different. It's not one of those brands where you're not sure if it's who it's from. There's iconic pieces, and they stand the test of time in capsule wardrobes.
So you're a zagger in a world of ziggers. Okay. In terms of different career paths, in terms of iPhone rejector. I mean, personally, I find it hard to swallow that one, but let's move past that. Being iPhoned up to the hilt. But anyway, so but you've had some things that get chewed in the political machine of a big organization. The passion projects that get crushed in a casual sentence from somebody more senior.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about the tension of like wanting to zag, wanting to be a pioneer, but then having how to get it through the machine at times.
Yeah, it's interesting because the mat cover of FTC versus permanent has a impact on that. When you're there for a short period of time, you don't have to worry so much about the politics. You can call it out of like, this is clear opportunity that we're leaving. Do you want to do it or not? Whereas I think when it's permanent, you have to really understand the gears and the cogs and like what's driving decision making, who has influence over the decision makers as well. So sometimes it's not just your boss, it's your boss's peers, or your boss's boss, or your boss's boss's peers. You have to like really think about the network of who can block this. And get them on side early, because if they're aware of the brief is coming or this is in development, they can't then stop it at post-production stage when it's been creatively tested and should be going live. Like that's the most painful bit, because sometimes you've worked really hard and you think you've done something really outstanding that will perform, but if there is a powerful person in that organization, and at the end of the day, there is a level of hierarchy, and you have to sometimes conform because they have a level of experience that you don't. And I think you have to just be aware of that as well. I think that's something I've learned over time. to be a bit more humble and actually there's a reason why this may or may not make sense. Like HSBC is a brand of 350 years old, global. It needs to be protected. It's very, there's a reason there's a lot of risk aversion and cautiousness and like strategy and planning in a brand like that. Whereas somewhere like Hyperoptic, where it's 10 years, it's a challenger brand. They need to be stealthier to stand out with someone like BT and Virgin and Sky. So that has an impact. I think some realistic tips that I've found useful is having a stakeholder mapping. And I've actually kind of like listed people. I won't tell people what number they've got, but into P1s and P2s and P3s in organizations before. So who are the closest ones? I need to know what's on their mind on a weekly, regular basis, regular contact. P2s I might delegate to someone else in my team. Less frequent contact, maybe weekly, monthly. And then P3, we still keep them engaged, maybe through roadshows or like group emails of updates. And that's been quite useful because then you know what people need from you and what you need from each other.
I love that because stakeholder stuff can be such a big derailer, and it's almost like a bit of a dirty word, or to be am I being conniving or contrived or whatever.
Politics
it is,
feels like a dirty word, but actually it's just like understanding like what do people what gets them going. How can you make it sound like that idea is their idea? Like who cares? Like if it still goes live at the end of the day and they thought they were involved in its creation, it's probably more likely to happen.
Just never leak who's P1, P2.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Don't send it in an email.
Accidentally, wrong attachment.
The first rule of Fight Club.
But DACs and RACs, they are critical because I've been in organizations, environments where people are too scared to leave someone out of the loop, and the CC box gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it becomes, should we have a meeting? And then the meeting only takes 5-10 minutes. And it's like, but at least everyone was invited to the meeting. They had the opportunity to be involved. They're aware of it. If they wanted to block it, they could.
You're making me shudder. I'm remembering the good old days.
Yeah. Whereas, a clear racy is the way to go.
As a zagger, as Marx termed it, I think the flip side to that is the thought that maybe there's a sense of hard to fit in because you're going against the grain in that way. I've certainly felt it in many instances. And I wonder, get your take as to how do you think you fit in organization context? How do you try to make the effort and does it work?
I think it is a tough one because I've moved around a few times and it is hard to be new. It's far easier to just stay in your comfort zone where you know how things work, people, you may have friendships, and it's like going back to school in a new school again, which is horrible. Like, at least when you go back to school after summer holidays, you're going to see the same friends again.
Exactly.
Some familiarity. I think knowing what matters to you, like for me, one of the things that I find really important is a test and learn culture, innovation, being able to experiment, do things differently, having a bit of space to try and experiment. Process as well. For me, I find it's funny because when I was early on in my career, I used to find the process horrific. I was like, why do we have to take it to this forum? Why do we have to make this deck? Why do we have to fill in this template? But actually, a bit of structure and knowing where to go and who to share things with makes execution far easier. And especially when it gets on that end of delivery where you've got the asset and it needs to go live. If you've done all the tick boxes in advance, you can't then have a subjective comment left field at the end of the day. Yeah, I think feeling part of a community and group of people is important, and the way you understand that is feedback. Do you get good feedback, or do people give you a lot of constructive feedback? Is that balanced? And no one's perfect. If there's no constructive feedback, I'd say the feedback is not going deep enough. But if the feedback they're giving you is something you don't agree with at all, and you're like, I can't be that person, then I think that's when you know it's not a right fit.
Yeah.
As an example, sometimes I've had like real pushes to be more commercial, like really, really focused on the P&L. And I'm like, I feel like I understand the numbers enough. I can do analytical stuff, but I like having that balance and being able to be a creative and media specialist. Whereas some people are like, you need to be more commercial. You need to speak more numbers. And I'm like, I think I'm doing okay. If you want me to push further, then maybe it's not the environmental place for me.
I just one more point around the thought that if you are in this way of having a career where you're moving from different places and spaces, do you have a, I guess everyone's trajectory is a sense of a feeling that you're moving to some destination. But in the way that you've navigated, do you feel like that be the case? Because sometimes it could maybe feel even more circular.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, there was a lot of like, I'm going to be CMO and I need to constantly be going up and getting more pay rises and better titles. But then on reflection, what I've learned is you can learn things just from an experience and people, and actually people that you don't connect with and don't vibe with. Sometimes you learn more from, like, this is not how I want to behave or operate or treat others. But like hierarchy is something like I really struggle with. So some companies where they will tell their directs and then the information gets cascaded and it gets cascaded again. I'm like, what? This is just really inefficient. But also I think it's a bit rude, and like you're not valuing that information can be given directly to more junior people. Whereas I think respect and trust is two-way. Yeah, no, I think experiences have a value which you don't necessarily realize at the time. So I think every brand I've been at, I've picked up different things. At John Lewis, customer experience was hugely critical. The customer experience team would review any campaign before it went live or product launch to think about the FAQs a customer would have. So you are already really getting in the customer's shoes. Like marketers often talk about like getting in the customer's shoes, but actually they were really doing it. They were thinking about and they would then answer the questions that the customer may ask. None of them may get answered. I mean, none of them may actually ever get asked, but we were ready for it. We were ready for every eventuality. Barclays, like agility was really important. So I used to do something called market moves. Also one of those trauma moments. Just because it was, you would clear your desk if a competitor price point changed in credit cards. That was a time where everyone was competing in affiliates like Money Supermarket, having a long 0% offer and interest-free period was how you would get traffic. Being top of the table got you more coverage, more clicks, more sales, more revenue. If Virgin Money changed their rate, my day's off. Like, to clear the desk, I have to work on changing our price point, getting it live in the next 2 hours. And that's where you needed colleagues to know their part and role, and have that agility to be able to say, actually, I'm going to have to reprioritize now my day very quickly because this is my new focus. And it's quite rare that you need to do that day to day. And actually, I think having learned that in that environment, it's really future-proofed me for other roles. Like I'm super chilled if someone wants to pull me into something last minute. It's made me quite versatile. Whereas at Amazon, I think I learned different things there. Like data was really important, and actually, because data and performance data was so accessible, it was so integrated with the CFO, marketing effectiveness and attribution came from finance. Whenever marketing spoke any numbers, everyone believed it. Whereas I think in other organizations, if marketing are reporting on this is our revenue contribution, or like, rolling their eyes, don't have any faith in it. So I think I've been able to collect almost like little snippets of like what makes success, and I would love to like bring it all together one day. But yeah, I think those experiences give you a sense of direction of what works and what doesn't, and then if you can craft a little bit of your workplace and bring some of that learning into it, it makes commercial success much more likely.
Really great.
Jay, you've talked fairly openly about your socioeconomic background, and I'm curious to know how that's informed a lot of what we've talked about. What's the linkages, the dots of those?
Yeah, it's so I think I have to be. I am very mindful and conscious of the fact my parents immigrated from Pakistan in the 70s. So they were well educated, but for them to make that jump, for their kids to have a better life, they had to kind of give that up and do blue collar work. And I think if you look at the 70s, 80s, a lot of people who immigrated, they would be doing things like taxi driving or seamstresses or postmen, just because it was stuff you could do shift work. So if you worked harder, you got more money. You could send more money back to your parents or siblings because they were not doing as well. So I think that's always instilled in me like a real sense of like graft. And yeah, so I'm very grateful to them as well. I think you always then have a feeling I want them to be proud. don't want them to have done that huge leap to give up everything and everyone you know for me to then just be sitting around doing not much. So I think it's given me a
I don't think that's possible, by the way. I think you're fine. You've covered that one.
Thanks. So it's given me a lot of drive, but then actually I was very grateful then again to go to a private school, so an independent school. I was on a bursary, so I wasn't paying, my parents weren't paying the full fees that a lot of people I was around were. So I could equally be comfortable going to a car boot sale or terraced houses in Luton versus friends with like multi-million houses in the countryside or going to fine dining at Roker. So I think it's given me like a real diverse ability to connect with people across the spectrum. I think particularly in marketing, a lot of people are from middle class, white backgrounds. If you look at ad agencies, a lot of the senior talent is still from there, and that drives a lot of the creative direction. Whereas I can review a piece of creative and think, oh, how's this audience going to feel about that insight? So yeah, I think it gives me an ability to see things from multiple perspectives, which otherwise aren't always in the room. And I think ethnicity is one angle, but also neurodivergence is not often spoken about very much. Like I'm autistic, so I often engage quite differently in a meeting. I'll be less verbal. I prefer things in writing. But it also gives me an ability to see through noise and see quite clearly. Like I have a very high attention to detail. So I feel like I have superpowers, but it's taken me a while to kind of understand that and not be afraid of my difference. I think quite regularly you feel, is it worth me speaking up and sharing my different point of view right now? Or is it gonna, or is it not gonna land well? I think there is still a lot of unconscious bias in workplaces. Like, you know, you don't want to go around calling your colleague a racist, but you do get certain labels attached to you. So I may have a point of view or an idea and I'll be seen as a troublemaker. If someone else comes up with the same idea like a couple of hours later, it's like, oh yeah, let's do that now. So yeah, I think socioeconomic, colour, the neurodivergence, it all has impact. And I think Amy Keane was saying on your podcast recently, like, how much of that can you change and can you change other people? You kind of just have to change your own attitude and be like, don't care. You have to just care a little bit less. Otherwise it can weigh so heavy on you. And for me, often I may be the only Pakistani someone ever works with or ever comes across their day-to-day. So I just want to make sure it's a good experience for them, rather than to them to think, oh, he's the troublemaker. He doesn't let go. He's got a dog with a bone.
It's a very interesting point about you carry responsibility. The thing you just said there about maybe the only Pakistani person that somebody has worked with. I don't know if I've referenced this before on the show, but Ed Sheeran, at the age of 16, it was clear he was going to be a megastar. And his dad said to him, think about this. Nearly everybody you meet in your life will only meet you once. Mm. Imagine that enough of those people walk away thinking you're a dick.
Yeah.
And then you have no brand. It's not an exact metaphor, but it's very interesting to hear you talk about a burden of responsibility representing your heritage. I mean, that's I've never heard that said before, but it feels very, very resonant.
It's so true.
Richie, you come in, because when we've had this conversation a few times through the recent times of the years.
Got it. Look, it's a tough one to grapple with because, you know, just the same way Amy sat in that sofa as you are today. I mean, it's resonating, right? These things do resonate in a way that it's sometimes even hard to grapple with, to know if you're being oversensitive or indeed it is the way the world is. It's really hard to distinguish that sometimes. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that keeps me up at night is, you know, I live my life, and we all live our lives at the intersection of marketing and love the industry that we're a part of. And yet the thing that I really struggle with is, in my heart of hearts, should we be recommending our industry for people like me? I mean, is it a good place to be? And it's one thing that I really do grapple with because of the love that I have for it. But yet, common experiences that we've all had make us kind of go, wait a minute. Why would we want other people to come in and feel that sort of similar sense of feelings?
Yeah, I actually was a board advisor for a non-profit called People Like Us.
Right.
And there they actually get people of color, different ethnic minority backgrounds, and they do 3-minute presentations celebrating work. It's really short, sharp, punchy, and actually it's created a community where it's uplifting for others. And I think the moments like that remind me I'm not alone, and there are others who have similar struggles, and there's power, and we give each other strength to speak up. And there is really good talent, and I think brands often miss out on hiring more diverse backgrounds. And I think there's a BCG study or something like if you hire from someone with out of sector experience, is much more likely to have an impact on commercial outcomes. Because otherwise, you'll probably just do the same thing. Like if you went from Tesco to Sainsbury's, you're just going to think of all the Tesco ideas and try and do them in Sainsbury's, stuff that's already been done. Whereas if you bring someone from, say, a bank, it does bring a different point of view. Even at AllSaints, sometimes I've surfaced things and my boss is like, oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought of it. And, but you have to be around people who are open to it and receptive, rather than someone who's just going to close the door and be like, no, that's not what we do here, or that's not the norm for our industry.
Would you recommend your younger self going into the industry?
Yeah, I think I'd say yes, but I think you have to be ready to have tougher skin. You have to be okay with the fact it's going to be easier for some other people than it is for you, and you will be measured against a slightly different yardstick. It is tough if you don't have thick skin. Don't do it.
Good advice.
Because it's such a subjective area, particularly when it comes to like creative, even media strategy. To be honest, like people will have an opinion of what they think is right, even if the numbers or market is going in a different way. Creative is entirely subjective because what one person thinks is good, another person may not. But how do we move the quality to be more encompassing of the wider world and universe we live in, rather than for a small segment? Like I've watched like even quite recently, the American Eagle jeans versus jeans content has been getting a lot of debate on LinkedIn, but there's more subtle ones out there as well. I think Sanex did an advert where it's an animated brown lady who then transforms into a beautiful white one, and it's like, how did no one spot that? EE have actually done something called Safer Sims, where some white kids are being bullied, and the first bullies you see on screen are black. So why that casting would have been quite conscious, and it's having a subliminal impact and message that coloured people are naughty.
Now, I want to come on to, you said something earlier. I mean, so I think one of the greatest vantage points that you have, multiple industries, roles, is that you must have so much experience of the job interview, speaking to lots of different people all the time. And whether it's scouting for the next opportunity or indeed, going for something specific. And I wonder what kind of advice you would have for people who are in those sort of shoes. I mean, it's a tough gig to get a job in marketing today. And I just wondered if there's any sort of advice or things that you pull out that you think about when you're preparing for sort of the next gig or the next opportunity or the next interview.
Don't always think about the title and the pay. So be a bit broader of what you may learn, and also try and speak to multiple people in that brand. I think if you only engage with the hiring manager, who will be your future boss, they are also putting on a face and a front when they're interviewing, because they want to get you in. I would try and understand and get other people's view of the hiring manager, their peers, your peers, people you're going to manage, because I think that's how you really get a feeling for a company and its culture, whether it's true or whether it's just something that is in HR guidelines and policies. Like, is there commonality about the way people talk about this company, this team, people who have left, people who may know someone there. And to do that, you kind of need to do a bit more pre-work and ask around. It is hard. Interviewing at the moment is really hard, and even just getting to that first interview is really hard. So I think that's
how'd you do it?
That's the tricky bit. And actually, yeah, I think even recruiters nowadays say you have to network. You have to be visible. You have to connect with people. For me, I like going to industry events because I feel like that's where you get inspiration. I like bringing inspiration and ideas back to our business. How can it be applied to AllSaints? But also you bump into people, and it's not necessarily about like going around scanning everyone's LinkedIn, I've been at events where someone's like spoken to you for a couple of minutes and then they're off. It's like
Done, tick.
oh, I collected 20 LinkedIn ads today. I think you need depth to those networking and moments and connections. And actually, there was another one. I was at a dinner, and the lady sat next to me. Like, we really got on. Unfortunately, she's based in Germany, so I don't see her very often. And then a role came up at that organization, and she's been able to put my name forward. Whereas at that time...
What, you're moving to Germany?
The role is in London. I don't know if it will go anywhere, but nowadays when there's 400, 500 applicants per role,
Exactly.
just to have that additional help if HR is screening like, oh, these 5 have a referral, that will really help. And it was never like a malicious or thing like, I'm going to use this person for a referral. I'm going to connect with these people to see if they can refer me to jobs in their environment. I think it has to be natural. And if you find people that connect with you, that referral should be quite natural. It doesn't even have to be in the system. They might put in a good word for someone who's at that company.
Do you believe in serendipity?
Definitely. Actually, all of my connections, all of my roles I've secured have in some way happened through some kind of serendipity moment. So crowd around media agency at Hyperoptic, and my account director told me that AllSaints was one of their clients, and someone was going on maternity leave. Would I be interested? And this time I'd just parted ways with Wex, and I was like, yeah, totally. Please put my name forward. So it was a very indirect. Someone at a media agency who I'd got on, had a good working relationship with, connected me to AllSaints. And then again at AllSaints, my boss was adamant to not necessarily hire straight away because he was new as well into the business. And there was nervousness. I didn't have industry experience. So that was it looked good on paper, but not retail, not fashion. And then I just didn't let go. I was like, you need to hire me. Just hire me for 3 months. What's the worst that can happen?
Back yourself.
Back yourself.
You've got the budget approved, right? This person's going on mat leave. Surely it's better to have someone than no one. And then my 3 months was coming to an end, and I was like, oh, so I guess I'll be leaving soon. He was like, what? I thought you were here for 12 months. I was like, no, do you not remember that conversation where it was just a 3-month trial? So yeah, I think you do have to back yourself, but know where you're gonna what you're looking for and whether it connects with that. You have a very short checklist. So for me, it's about having a brand that has good product, has a strategy, like a commercially sound strategy, not somewhere that's going under. And that people aren't assholes like that. That's really critical for me. I feel like I've wasted so much time and energy trying to push certain things forward, which have been for the good of the business, like for commercial outcomes, to drive growth. But the people politics has just like taken away all the energy or watered down an idea so much. It's actually not what the output or campaign was meant to be.
Good brand, commercially solid, no assholes like that. You mentioned about being board advisor for people like us. And so I'm curious about the role of side hustles and whether it's to accelerate your learning or passion products, because it feels like you've integrated a lot of your learning into your career choices. Yeah. So what role does side hustles play for you?
I think day to day it can become so all mind consuming to just be thinking about this is on my to-do list. This is the next thing that we need to deliver. And having moved around a lot and having worked with some arseholes, I think one reflection is always, it's just work. At the end of the day, like, don't get too caught up into it that you can't sleep. It's to pay the bills, to live your life, right? It's not like the job shouldn't be your life. And I find having different side hustles gives you that ability to tap out. Whether it's running or going to third space. I'm obsessed with third space. So people see me there a lot. I'm there in the mornings. People are like, why are you up so early on a work day? I'm like, I don't want to think about work. I don't want to look at my phone. Whereas some people, they'll be on holiday and they'll turn in the Wi-Fi on their phone, on their flights and checking in on emails. I'm like, people need to learn to disconnect, finding ways, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's a hobby, whether I think even people in partnerships, they need to sometimes you need to escape your partner because you just need to find yourself. How do you find things that give you nourishment? I think is really important because then you bring that energy back to work. If you're thriving, your team, your peers, people sitting next to you will also be elevated. Whereas if you're feeling crappy, I think it's very contagious, probably more contagious if you're in a bad mood.
Absolutely love that. Jay, this has been a wonderful conversation and we're coming sort of to the end of the segment here. And I just want to ask, I mean, if, this is the opportunity to impart any sort of advice that you would have for people listening in, whether they are job hunting, whether they're maybe looking at a pivot or indeed in the midst of their flow of their career. What kind of advice would you lend to someone or give to someone?
I think emotions are really important to manage. So don't take things so personally. That's a key lesson. Like she doesn't hate you. She's not out to kill you or to take your job. Like calm down. She's doing her own job. So I think just being a bit less personal, and understanding that people at work are still humans. It's not all about the work. Feelings as well. I think energy is important, and like the energy of people around you. So yeah, try and make sure both in and out of work that you've got a good circle of people. Even if your day-to-day colleagues, you don't have someone to vibe with or a friend, try and like bridge a bit further out. Find a friend in like operations or finance, or like find a way to make some kind of pal at work. I think that is important. So you can have someone to have a little moan with over a coffee. I think that's a good release. And then feedback loops. I think trying to ask for feedback regularly. So something I used to do was a Survey Monkey, anonymous, so people can be as candid as they like. It was probably only like 3 or 4 questions. How often do you work with me? So like regular, every so often, not much, more an observer. Second was, how would you describe me in 3 words? And then third was, any other feedback to anything you need more from me or I could do better, just like an open field. At the brands I've been worked at longer, I would then send it annually. And it would be interesting to see if like, has the feedback been addressed, if there was something constructive, and actually finding commonalities in the phrases that people use to describe you. So I used to always get knowledgeable. I was like, I don't want to be knowledgeable. And then someone was like, why would you not want to be knowledgeable? Knowledgeable is great. People rate you. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's like the nerdy emoji, but yeah, maybe it's a good one. I kind of wanted to be, I don't know, I was expecting like cool or trendy. So yeah, I think knowing your personal brand and whether it's verified through feedback, like do what you think of yourself. Is that the same as what other people think of yourself? And that's what it enabled me. So yeah, I think anonymous feedback, and do it when it's outside of the annual feedback survey. You know, when you get like 20 feedback requests.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it totally off cycle to that. So then you'll get better responses.
Fabulous. So much great advice. It's been amazing having this conversation with you, Jay. Thank you for your time. I know it will resonate with a lot of people.
Cheers, guys. It's been a pleasure.